Doing?
Hey, Randy, good to see you.
Hope you're there. Anyway, everybody, thanks for watching. This will definitely be a awesome, impactful, insightful session with Dave Vellante. He's co-founder of SiliconANGLE, theCUBE, and you'll see he's got his fingers in a lot of other things as well. Our initial title topic was the future of data in the cloud, but as we're prepping, he said, hey, we should also throw in there a topic of IT spend, which is even near and dear to everybody's hearts and everybody's that's selling to the C-suite and companies overall. This is our, what are we here, 107th episode. Anybody watching, you can go to salescommunity.com and you can see the prior episodes that we've had, as well as the lineup that we have upcoming. We're booked out, I think, about 18 months or so now. And for those that are members, thank you very much. For those that are not, you can go to salescommunity.com. You can, there's two links in the upper left-hand corner. One of them is to pay, but I would recommend you do the one that says winter free, and you get a free year membership there. And also very fortunate to have an impressive advisory board of a lot of great industry luminaries and executives such as Dave. We are sponsored today by DecisionLink, who's the value selling sponsor of Sales Community. Dave, I think you mentioned you may not know DecisionLink, but I think you knew Tim Page a little bit, right, from the VCE days?
Yep.
So really cool company. So they basically automate a lot of the value selling aspect of things, which is so critical these days, because at the end of the day, unless you can really justify what the value is in your solution, you're probably not going to sell the solution. And we have from Molly, she chimes in. Hi, Dave. Hi, Randy. Great to see you together. Should be interesting. Absolutely. So Molly jumped the gun on us. Thanks. So we have this being broadcasted live on LinkedIn Live. So you can see us or hear us. We cannot see you. But as Molly just did, feel free to post any comments or any questions. And as always, we have Tucker behind the scenes who's helping us pull everything up. So by way of introduction, Dave lives in the Boston area in Harvard, not Harvard University, but Harvard, Mass. Has lots of interests, I know for sure. Great family person, is an avid skier when his back is not out, and also gardening. We're also LPs in a venture fund called Stage 2 Capital, which is great. And I've got a few intros here that I'd like to read off. One is from John Furrier, who's his co-founder and partner in crime. Says Dave is co-founder and co-CEO and co-host of theCUBE for SiliconANGLE Media. Dave has a popular podcast called Breaking Analysis, and is also known for coverage of enterprise technology for decades. I'd say the leader in that for sure. Dave and John founded SiliconANGLE, theCUBE, to track the top enterprise tech trends and companies. Dave Donatelli, who likewise we've known for a long time, says for more than 35 years, Dave has had his hand on the pulse of the enterprise IT industry. He is a trusted advisor to the best tech CEOs, senior executives, and end user customers, and CIOs. Dave has earned this trust through years of sound and rational analysis of our industry and important technical trends. He is a great interviewer who is known for probing questions and conversational style with the leaders of the industry. He's also a great guy who has earned all of his success through hard work. You got to frame that one, right?
Wow. And then Donatelli, thank you. And John.
There you go. And Chris Riley, who's currently president of Data Robot, another fantastic executive, says Dave is one of the most insightful and forward-thinking analysts in the business. He has so many connections that allow him to get past the marketing hype and into the realities of how companies are performing and positioned in the market. Hats off to his success. So pretty good. So mine's going to pale in comparison, but we're kind of reflecting back, but I think it was back in the 80s. I was at EMC, you're at IDC, so going back probably 36 years. And you were the analyst back for this small area called storage, and who knew it was going to be what it was going to be. And certainly you've gone on to do it, have an amazing career. And in spite of that, you've always remained very authentic, real, helpful, and responsive. Always will respond to me in a heartbeat, for anything. So appreciate that friendship. And if there's a guilt by association, we've got over 1,300 mutual connections on LinkedIn as well. So anyway, so with that, let's jump into the questions so we can help the audience gain fantastic insight from you. So starting off maybe with your first job, your first job was at IDC, right? Back in, I don't know if we're allowed to say what, 1983?
Yeah, I joined IDC in 1983. Actually, my very first job, I was a programmer for a firm in Schenectady, a little firm called GE. And because I was a math and computer science major, and I realized right away that I was not a good programmer. They were having me debug code, and I was like, this sucks. So I left and moved back home, and just was bouncing around. And the job market wasn't great at the time. Stumbled into IDC, got a job at the lowest level, just one rung above the mailroom. And then kind of worked my way up over the course of 15 years, became a senior vice president and, working on the executive staff, had global responsibility, built a $70 million business basically from scratch and cobbling together a bunch of internal resources as well. And then left there in 1999 in the height of the dot-com bubble. And then, I started a CIO consultancy and did that for a while. I had a software company and, then started Wikibon and SiliconANGLE with my business partner, John Furrier.
Awesome. So this is, I think, about the 13th year with theCUBE. So maybe we can go through kind of each one of your impressive pieces. So SiliconANGLE focuses on news.
Yep.
So
SiliconANGLE.com is our news site. Yep, that's right.
Okay. And then what type of things are there?
Okay, so SiliconANGLE.com, it's news of the day. We do earnings releases. We do in-depth reports. A guy named Paul Gillen used to be the editor-in-chief of Computer World, works for us there. He's our managing editor. I publish there pretty much every week. So it's a great news site. We get about 500,000, visitors a month. So it's respectable, really focused on enterprise tech. So that's cool. And then the other site is thecube.net. You go there, it's all our events. We have event software that we've written. We host everything with our own software. And we run, 70, 80 events a year, most of which we used to be physically at. Now, of course, with COVID, most of those actually are remote and hybrid. And then Wikibon.com has become kind of my personal research blog. It's where I started what I used to call Gartner Group for free, as a way to just be seen, collaborate, work with IT folks, and get some good data out there.
That's great. And then also you've got something coming up, SuperCloud, right? SuperCloud
Next
World?
week, January 17th, supercloud.world. We've got speakers from Walmart, Zhamak Dagani speaking. She created Data Mesh. Speakers from Saks, Western Union, Mercury Financial, a number of other practitioners and technologists. It's talking about the future of cloud and data.
Oh, that's great. So long story short, I would characterize it in maybe the old school speak of probably, back in the day, you mentioned Computer World, you had these, actual paper trade rags, right, that you have to read and catch up. So you have all that online. So I'd say kind of the best one-stop shop to know what's going on in the industry and announcements and trends. So that's kind of an important facet. So anybody watching should know that. And what's also cool is you can do search. So if you're going to be talking to a certain company about whatever, search on whatever those different topics are. And then also from an event perspective, you not only leverage having CEOs of various companies, which gives them amazing PR, but then also you'll go to some of their, industry conferences. So VMworld, AWS, reInvent, kind of all those. And then you kind of host that and kind of help them get that, whether it's a sales kickoff or user group or industry conference, just help get that, spread across the world as well, correct?
Yeah, across enterprise tech, we have a very wide observation space: cloud, data, infrastructure, crypto and blockchain, applications. And so like you said, historically, we've gone to events. We did 70, 80 events a year physically, bringing our set, lights, camera, action, and reporting. And then now we do, many more virtually. So I have this unique combination of, I was an analyst, and then I was, sat on Computer World's board. I always worked at IDC, worked with IDG, which was Computer World and Info World and Macworld and all those publications. So I have an affinity for that. What now they used to be, like you said, newspapers, and then everything went online. And so it's just an interesting combination when I met John Furrier of news and reporting with the analysis world, AR and PR, if you will,
Yeah.
coming together. And we created this digital product, which has been booming.
Awesome. And I love kind of the catch-all. I don't know where it came from, but the ESPN of tech, right? I mean, that kind of is a good way to encapsulate everything, right? Whether it's, this minute or what has happened or what might be happening.
That's always been our North Star, is build the ESPN of tech, serve an audience, serve a community, and, figure out a way to make some money at it, while you're doing it.
Oh, that's great. So usually we've got more, I'll say, not that you're not a tech executive, but it's an interesting platform. So we talk about kind of the go-to-market, what you do and how you do it. So how do you sell? I'm sure it's, mostly I'll say, call-ins and referrals per se, but how do you sell?
Yeah, we have a relatively small sales team of 4 direct sales individuals, direct as in both internal and external. But the vast majority of our business is inbound. We really, to kind of explain it to you, we have great product market fit. theCUBE is really sticky. Yeah. It's an unbelievable product. We're still honestly sorting out, okay, what's the scale model? You need production resources, which we have, and we've got 2 studios, one in Palo Alto, one in Boston. And we're just sort of ratcheting up the talent, the hosts. So you need that kind of host capability. And we've done shows all over the world. And we're really interested in scaling the business. We've grown very nicely, 30% the last couple of years. We think we can continue that trajectory. And we've really got to step up the go-to-market piece. So maybe I could use your help doing that.
There you go. Perfect. And basically your kind of ideal customer profile is tech companies, and I would imagine kind of CEOs, CROs, CMOs.
Yeah, CMO, as I would say, is the primary target for smaller companies. It's the CEO interaction. And then for the really super large companies, while we have relationships with the CEOs, our buyer will either be somebody in marketing, somebody in product marketing. Oftentimes it's an event person or a partner salesperson, the BD people, because the partners love to come on theCUBE. They love to get their word out. And so the business model has really evolved, Randy, where companies like AWS actually will resell theCUBE as part of their MPO process. Wow. Snowflake does something similar. Companies like Dell, HPE, they really have made theCUBE an extension of their event offerings.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So kind of like a partner, go-to-market, indirect partner model almost.
Absolutely. We do rev share. We try to make theCUBE profitable for our customers.
Wow. That's great. And then it's not only kind of, I'll say, the legacy big companies that you mentioned, but also, smaller upcoming companies, before talking about like a Tackle.io as an example too. So you kind of cover small to big, right?
Absolutely. Companies like Starburst, Chaos Search, our friend, Ed Walsh, they're a customer. Platform 9. I mean, I'd say, last year we probably got 110 new logos. And, probably 109 of those were small companies.
Wow. So it sounds like utopia for anybody who wants to go into sales. So you got to try and figure out how do you juggle all this inbound. So many companies today are trying to just focus on getting the top of funnel going, but it looks like you kind of have the fish jumping in the boat. Do you have openings that you're kind of hiring for now?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a sales job in the East Coast. Well, everything's virtual these days, and one as well on the West Coast. So we got 2 openings in sales, and then a number of others in production and admin, and again, as I said, trying to grow the company and keep that trajectory going up and to the right.
Great. And do you have those posted somewhere?
Yeah, they should be on LinkedIn. They're in the process of being posted, I should say. They will be up on LinkedIn shortly. We're working with a couple of headhunters to help us find some good people. So that's in process.
Hello.
Yeah. We got to talk afterwards, right?
Yeah. But for the hire, obviously you've got a bunch of different company sites here. So is there one primary that would be hiring kind of first of those openings that you mentioned, or is it really all of them?
Yeah, sort of the back end. So those websites are our properties. I mean, essentially we're organized around, we've got a product called Signal, which is a paid service, and that people come into our studio and we package up videos, and we run programs, and we run events. We have the CUBE flagship, which goes out to events. We extract the signal from the noise. That's where we got the ESPN of tech. We have an entire business around ecosystems, AWS being our largest ecosystem. And then we have another emerging business in events, running our own events. And that's what supercloud.world is. You should go to supercloud.world, register. You'll see what's happening next week. It's an awesome, this will be our second one that we did. We did one last August 9th out of our Palo Alto studio, live with on-demand or pre-recorded sessions worked in with live commentary from the in-studio.
Crazy. That's great. And for anybody that's considering to come work there with you, what would you say is special about the culture, or why would they want to work there? Obviously, you've got amazing exposure into the latest and greatest of tech and trends and everything else.
Yeah, so we're very external focused in terms of just wanting to create the best content possible. We serve an audience of practitioners and technologists, and also we have obviously clients that are sponsors of ours, and they're both equally important. So if you have a passion for creating great content and or serving a client through helping them package content and getting messages out to their community, and we move fast, we're really diverse. We have to do a lot of stuff at the last minute because that's the way big tech companies work. And we turn that into a feature. We move really fast, and we can accommodate, a lot of last minute audibles.
Oh, that's great. So moving on, one of the title topics is the future of data in the cloud. So maybe just to level set, maybe kind of how do you define data and how do you define the cloud?
Oh, it's interesting, right? I mean, you and I have been in the data business for a while. You in particular with EMC, a data is a bunch of bits that are stored, on disk or flash. Well, data, the definition of data is evolving, and I think it's changing where, data is a fundamental component of organizations' competitive advantage. And I think the problem that most companies have is they get so much data. There's exhaust coming off of transaction systems. There's data in analytics systems and data warehouses. It's strewn about the cloud. It's out on the edge. And they just can't harness it all. And so what they've generally done is said, all right, we're going to shove it all into a big centralized platform, Hadoop or an Oracle database or whatever it is. And then we're going to try to get value out of it. And so we're going to hire all these really highly specialized individuals to get data out. They'll do reporting for salespeople, or they'll identify analytics, or they'll do real-time, ad targeting. And it's just been really difficult to find the right people to do that. Those centralized teams generally don't have the expertise in the business. They got expertise in the technology. So success has been largely defined as, hey, the tech works. It's not been defined as we're getting maximum business value, and that's changing. And I think the cloud is definitely changing that. It allows people to move faster. It puts data in the hands of business people like ourselves, salespeople, line of business people, product people, and this notion of self-service architecture, but the technology being such that it allows the data to be shared safely, securely, in a governed manner, is something that is really coming to the fore in the 2020s.
Oh, that's great. We have a question from Phil Walton here. Dave, what industries do you primarily focus on to sell your products, services, and solutions to?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So it's primarily the enterprise tech business. So we don't do, a lot of Apple gadgets. That's really not our thing. But infrastructure and cloud. So think of the infrastructure and cloud stack, if you will. So storage, compute, middleware, database, and then above that, applications, different vertical applications. We've definitely got into blockchain and crypto and metaverse, and I know it's kind of out of favor now, but the fundamental technology we're still big believers in, and increasingly fintech and health tech, because everything's tech, everything's enterprise tech. So those tech-oriented industries have sort of gravitated toward what we do, which is essentially help people get the word out about their stories.
Oh, awesome. And back maybe on the cloud piece. So I saw AWS is working with Goldman to do a financial services data cloud, and then Goldman's leveraging that, and then they're actually offering it to other financial institutions, right? So it's not only just the baseline of doing the cloud for yourself, but it's now kind of building upon that.
And this is a huge trend that we see, and it's how we kind of coined the term super cloud. It's basically the idea that you have tools and software that you've developed. It's IP, and it's particularly acute in the financial services industry. Goldman, NASDAQ, Capital One, Western Union is another example, where they have these tools and processes that are best in class, and they're doing what AWS did. They're bringing those tools to the cloud. Maybe they're doing a hybrid connection, into the like AWS cloud or Azure or GCP or multiple clouds, and they're kind of pointing that at the world and saying, we're going to now make this available. We're going to monetize that capability, that data and that stuff. So everybody's becoming a software company, as Andreessen says, and everybody is using the cloud to expose that software and that monetization strategy to their customers.
Yeah. And then I saw bunch of different things you've written about, but Databricks, the CEO was talking about, way back when they started, they could basically just use a credit card, and all of a sudden they're on the map with AWS, and then now they're leveraging that to build kind of ISVs on top of their platform with your kind of super cloud concept, right?
Yeah, Ali Ghodsi, he's an amazing CEO, and you're right. They started Databricks basically as a way to kind of make Hadoop better. They're the ones behind Spark, out of Berkeley, and exactly right, Randy. I mean, we asked Ali Ghodsi, do you see yourself as an ISV? And he's like, well, no, not really. We're a platform, and we have ISVs writing applications on top of our platform. Whereas it's interesting. I mean, you talk to AWS, they're like, no, they're ISVs. And so what we see, that's why this super cloud concept is it's a cloud above the clouds, where you're using cloud and software to actually present services to your customers and monetize them.
Oh, that's amazing. And then next kind of title, anything else on the data in the cloud before we move on that you want to mention?
The last thing I'd say is I think you're going to see a major change in how data is used. It's going to be in the hands of the domain experts, the business people. It's going to be it's already decentralized physically, but increasingly organizations are going to be able to use data in new ways. And I think the second thing, Randy, is with AI and machine learning, whereas today you think about a CRM system, you're entering data into an opportunity, your leads or whatever it is, and a lot of that is human. And some of that's automated, of course, but you're entering information into a form. You're automating a process. Increasingly, you're going to see data apps where the machine is going into the transactions and maybe the e-commerce system, the ERP system, evaluating and the machine is going to develop programs and plans without humans and present that to humans. And that's going to be a big change. It's like Uber for people, places, and things. I think you're going to see that certainly this decade.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing talk about I'll say maybe the consumer side of it, the whole chat GBT or whatever it's called, being able to have them write anything, and you hear about the college kids, for paper. It's like, holy moly, it's just crazy.
Chat GPT writes better than I do, and I write a lot. It's like a little shrinkage when you go into Chat GPT.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then back on kind of AI, it seems like it's been kind of growing. So would you say now kind of AI is kind of mainstream, and thinking of we mentioned Chris Riley before, right? So Data Robot, one of the enterprise leaders there for AI.
Yeah, I think data and AI to me go together. And successful data companies, data-driven companies, we hear that buzzword all the time, but they're able to put data at the core of their business, as opposed to kind of data in silos around, in the periphery. And I think that generally speaking, companies like Data Robot are going to provide tooling to organizations so that they can build AI and data and make it at the center of their business, not necessarily physically, but be able to make data-driven decisions and have machines act on their behalf using data.
Yeah, but ultimately you have to, it's not just because it's cool, right? But there's got to be an ROI, there's got to be value there for leveraging AI kind of for these enterprise companies.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you're intimating, is that a lot of AI has been experimentation, kicking the tires and getting the technology to work, kind of like I was saying before, around data. And the real opportunity is you got to focus on areas that are going to give you more immediate returns. And it's been elusive. I will tell you, just looking at the data, most organizations aren't really thrilled with their AI initiatives. That said, AI is just going to be embedded. You're not necessarily, most organizations aren't going to build out AI. They're going to buy applications that have AI embedded into them. Salesforce Einstein is a simple example, but I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I do some work with Chris and Data Robot, and just for what it's worth, Tucker, maybe you can pull up the Data Robot website, and they've got some amazing, just industry use cases. I mean, you could basically pull the industry, and then it has, I always say, if I'm a CFO, kind of what's the value, and they've got a lot of great content there just for what it's worth. So maybe tied into that is kind of value and ROI is kind of IT spending trends. So it seems like, if I'm a CIO, I'm probably in a holding pattern, but now there's this whole data monetization concept. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So just some of the numbers at the macro level. We exited 2021 with CIOs expecting 8% growth in 2022 for their spending. And that was before Ukraine and before Fed tightening. By the summer, that number was down to 6.5%. In December, it was 4%. And now in Q1, they're looking at 3%. So, nobody really knows. I call it the seesaw economy. Jamie Dimon's out today is saying that the hurricane that he predicted, maybe not so bad. NASDAQ's acting better. And I think you have this expectation during the pandemic was like, wow, tech, the run is never going to end. Semiconductor shortages, supply chain, and then all of a sudden there's this big pullback. And so I think you're going to see the seesaw action. But having said that, while people are sort of tapping the brakes, if it generates revenue, they're ready to go. So they're putting on hold projects that are maybe a modernization project of some back end, mainframe hairball. But they are ready to lean into big time anything that drives ROI and business value.
Yeah. And what do you think is that timing on the ROI window?
I mean, they definitely want to see stuff that's inside of a year for sure. If there's inside of 6 months, it has a much higher probability of getting funded.
Yeah, that's great. So that maybe ties in well with Decision Link. So they're a kind of value selling platform, and typically everybody has kind of spreadsheets, and you got to do this back and forth with customers to figure it out. And the kind of utopia or home run in sales, which Decision Link can help with as a value selling platform, is working with customers to then come up with kind of what is that value. So ultimately, I always say, if you're in the elevator with a CFO and you have 30 seconds or 20 seconds, what are you going to say? It's not a bunch of techno, mumbo jumbo, as Jeff Goldberg, rest in peace, taught us all years ago. But it's kind of, what are you going to do to help generate revenue, save money, get a competitive advantage? In the case of compliance, stay out of jail, right? And those are usually much more objective, dollar-centric things. It's not speed and feeds. So I assume you're in violent agreement.
100%. I mean, it's all about the value. What is it going to do what's in it for me, as they say? And I think a lot of times, salespeople just they go down into this widget does this, that, or the other thing, and it's like, okay, who cares? What does it do for my business? How does it increase my revenue, drive profits, improve my productivity? Show me.
Yeah, show me, baby. All right, so we have from Phil, who I think Phil's got his fingers in a bunch, but some fintech things as well. But anyway, he asks, data analytics and AI are at the forefront of every company's strategies, and the ability to use the data and analyze it with low code, no code solutions is critical. How are you working with companies to enhance these solutions? So do you actually work with the companies to enhance, or you kind of more just, I'll say, reporting the news?
So our value proposition is to really try to explain to people, what a technology is, what it can do for your business, how to apply it to your business, and try to inspire them to action. And the way we do that is we take the smartest people within our community and our client base, bring them into theCUBE, and have conversations with them, and challenge them to explain. This is the way we're talking about. What is the value to the business, and how do I get started? What are the roadblocks? What are the gotchas? What's the best advice that you have? And what's the right fit for that technology? And so that's what we do. And I think we do it better than anybody else out there.
Great question, Phil. Thanks. And just a reminder for those watching or listening along, feel free to ask any other questions or post any comments. So another piece you had written about was Palo Alto Networks earning their reputation as a leader in security. Certainly, it's a crazy, crazy crowded space and startups popping up everywhere. So why do you think Palo Alto's emerged so well?
Well, their founder, Nir Zook, he's this Israeli startup, startup nation guy, came to the United States, and he just looked at the security business, obviously an expert in that, and said, this thing is so broken. And so he started with firewalls, but just the firewall function was in the hardware. Everything else he did in software, he put it in the cloud. At the time, it was their cloud, and he took a software SaaS approach to the business. And there are others that are doing this, but Palo Alto is, I think, really opinionated and one of the leaders. And so what they've done is, rather than have a bunch of bespoke tools to try to solve the problem du jour, has come out with an architecture that does a variety of different things. Not only the firewall, but other firewall functions. It could do, whether it's endpoint or cloud security or network security, and do so in a single architecture. They've made a lot of acquisitions, and they just essentially have become the gold standard in cybersecurity. Now, there are other really great companies, CrowdStrike, Okta, CyberArk is a local company. And so, but there are just too many companies in cyber. And I think Palo Alto has a really excellent high value strategy to consolidate those tools. BJ Jenkins is there now as president. He's an amazing go-to-market exec. And their story is very strong, and their technology is top shelf.
Yeah. Great team. Rick Condon running sales. Jazz Sood has enterprise sales. Carl Sutherland channel, really, really strong team, which is obviously you need the technology, plus you need a great team go to market there for sure. So Dave Donatelli must be on the road. So he says, please ask Dave for his take on the cloud wars between AWS, Microsoft, Google, and Oracle, strengths and weaknesses of each. And I'll just emphasize briefly.
I love that question. AWS has got the best infrastructure cloud. Microsoft's coming at it from their strength in productivity software and applications. Google has to get its go-to-market act together. It doesn't know how to sell, in my opinion, properly, and it's losing too much money. And I'd say Oracle has the best cloud for mission-critical data. And I think Ellison's strategy, and in part Donatelli's strategy around the Oracle cloud, I think is brilliant. Everybody loves to crap on Oracle, but if you want to run mission-critical apps in the cloud, the Oracle cloud is the best place to do it. And I think they had the right strategy. He didn't mention IBM because IBM is kind of, not really a factor in the cloud other than, for selective cases.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Unreal.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting. So the Google, right? I'm active in the enterprise go-to-market sales space, but you would think they'd be able to, for lack of better words, get out of their own way, because there's so much talent and proven processes out there in terms of what you do and how you do it, and it's a great name, so you can get an app out with anybody.
Google has awesome tech. I got to believe Thomas Kurian's really frustrated that he coming from a go-to-market, maven like Oracle comes to Google where it's like they reject the sales organ. It's an engineering culture, and it's very challenging. I was talking to a practitioner the other day, Randy, who said, Snowflake and AWS, they work together. I can use AWS's, SageMaker AI tools inside of Snowflake, but if I want to use Google's AI tools, which are the best, with Snowflake, I can't. I have to use Google BigQuery. So even partnerships like that, they still got to figure out. And I think they will, but I think, losing $3 billion a year, whatever they're losing, is not ideal.
Crazy. So in my book, your go-to sales advisor, Tucker, maybe you can pull the link. On page 50, you've got a great write-up. It says, it's not who you know, but who knows you. Tell us more about that.
So it's definitely a philosophy of mine. It's funny you mentioned that, and you're living it, Randy. I mean, so when I left IDC, everybody knew me. And then I went in and did my CIO consultancy. We were working with CIOs up and down the East Coast in insurance and financial services and pharma. but my network changed dramatically. And when I decided to get back into the content business, nobody knew me. I knew a lot of people, but that really wasn't, the lever. What was the lever was publishing and writing and doing videos and getting my name out there again. And that was a game changer. So it was just a constant cadence. I was talking to my wife the other day. She goes, remember when you started Wikibon, you'd be up 3 o'clock in the morning blogging, and just every day you'd put out new content. And that was how we really built up the brand, not only the personal brand, but the company brand. Randy, I look at someone like you, the cadence that you're on with series like this and the work that you're doing, you understand, I think, how important it is to reach a larger audience, one to many. I think I'm on my 160th breaking analysis. I do it every week like clockwork. And it has I'm able to reach far more people, and many I don't even know.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's also an aspect of just kind of, industry has been very kind to us. So also an aspect of, giving back in that as well, right?
I'm glad you said that. You were asking before about the culture. We are mission driven. We're free content. We've never really optimized for EBIT, maybe call us crazy, but we really have optimized for free content. We don't have any paywalls. Our content is always available. Think of it as open source content. And John and I have invested a lot of money to make that happen. And that's how we've given back, at least one of the ways.
Yeah, fantastic. So what about, there's a couple standard questions I ask everybody each week. First, advice for people breaking into tech sales. Any advice there?
I mean, obviously networking is super important, but I think it goes back to, who knows you. And I think you should write as much as possible. When you write things down, it forces you to think more clearly. And when you publish, even though you might have one person or two people, your family, reading the stuff or watching the stuff, you got to start somewhere. And I think video is another key piece there. So, a lot of people, sales guys, they break in and say, hey, I got something to sell. You want to buy it? Versus, hey, here's some value that I'm going to give to you with no expectation in return. As you build up that repository, and this, Randy, of content, that content can be used in sales situations to give to people, to open doors and differentiate from your competition.
Yeah, especially now, LinkedIn, just being able to comment on different things. So, whatever, if I'm trying to sell to, you and John, going in and commenting, hey, this is great, appreciate this, appreciate that. After about a month or so, you're probably going to remember, okay, the same person's commenting. Then they ask for a meeting. You're going to say, okay, they're credible. And then even better, there's something that you say or do, and then they add in on top of that something that's of value. So there's a lot of those, little easy things that could be done now that definitely didn't exist when we were growing up, right?
I'll give you an example, and this is pretty sophisticated, but I'll give it to you anyway. Is I, like all of us, you'll get a friend will hit you up and say, hey, can you do an introduction to this CEO, as an example? Okay, fine. You can do an introduction on LinkedIn. I said, I'll do you one better. So we have software that every video that we record gets ingested into the software, automatically transcribed, indexed, so we can make clips like that. Anybody can do it. I can do it. You can do it. It's very simple to use. So I said, I'll do one better for you. I'm going to make a clip of an interview I did with this person you want to meet that was relevant to what you're selling. I'm going to give you that clip, and then you're going to post it on LinkedIn. You're going to tag him, and you're going to tag me. And we're going to start a conversation. That's a way better conversation starter than, hey, amazing, meet this guy. Yeah, it was great. And I don't know, they started a conversation. I don't know if they ever sold anything. I actually don't think they did. But still, what a better way to get in front of somebody.
Yeah, a lot of the sales tech stack companies I'm working with now, that they want help and get to the CROs. So first thing is, okay, we'll go back and listen to the podcast that I've done with them and kind of basically do what you just said. So second question is advice for those impacted by recent layoffs in tech sales.
Again, it comes back to networking, kind of same advice. You got to network, you got to get your name out there. And I think as well, when you research and you write, it just forces you to find some of the interesting, things that are going on in the industry. You might have a passion for security, and then you got to peel the onion and figure, okay, who's got the right strategy here? And how can I add value to that organization? So yeah, I mean, I think the good news is there are more people hiring than there are laying off, and the data shows that. It's weird, right? You see all these layoffs going on all over the place, but we have single-digit unemployment. So stay positive, because it's still an okay market out there.
Yeah, I was listening to a Goldman economic forecast yesterday, and they said there's basically 1.1 I have to get this right. 1.1 versus 1. So you've got 1.1 jobs open and you've got one person looking. So there's more jobs than there are people. So just crazy there. And then Tucker, I don't know if you're able to pull it up. I did a post, I think it was Sunday, on advice to people that are laid off. So there's some basic blocking and tackling that people can see. But one thing I always suggest, whether you're sales or anything, is circle back with whoever it is that you were working for or working with, and get back different or better. So I rinse everything else, but kind of get that feedback. And I think today, especially where the hiring was crazy and the funding was crazy, a year ago, now a lot of people are doing what I'll call kind of sloppy performance management. They're basically doing performance cuts that they probably should have been doing all along. And cultures are such that they're really not open giving the feedback in terms of what can people do different or better. So as an individual, you should always be able to look in the mirror and try and get some of that feedback. And that's just going to help you be kind of bigger, better, going forward. And prior years, you can maybe use a Belichick example, which given their season this year may or may not be as much value, right?
He's still good, but I know it's bromide, but stay positive, right? Fight the negative thoughts. Write down, what to do. Write down the list of things you can do and attack them, and you'll feel good about it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Now, what about you've interviewed amazing CEOs? Any kind of one or two that you'd kind of pull out, in particular that you really respect, and why?
Well, I think Frank Slootman has to be at the top of the list. I've known Frank since his data domain days. I've read his book multiple times. I interviewed him last June at the Snowflake Summit. His book is called Amp It Up. If you haven't read it, it's actually really amazing and inspiring. No BS, cuts right to the chase, super clear thinker. So, and an operator for sure. And I think, a couple others, Andy Jassy, amazing CEO. And one of my, early CEO heroes was Scott McNealy, a guy who had big cojones and wasn't afraid to take on the big boys.
Yeah, I was kind of a late entrant to Sun Microsystems by way of the trying to figure out a storage tech acquisition. So I ran services vertical, and I'd bring Wall Street, and he was just on sales calls. I mean, just so, which I think most of the top CEOs are. If you think about Mark Hurd, rest in peace, Dick Ian, and others, just so customer centric, just so responsive, kind of want to get it done, go back to corporate, try and break glass, as best they can. Crazy. Anyway, and what about maybe some sales leaders similarly?
I mean, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I'm in awe of you, Randy. I mean, I'll tell you, most of the great sales leaders that I met early on in my career were from EMC. Chris Riley, Peter Bell, even my friend Tom LaHive, who.
I was going to say Tom before when you mentioned CyberArk. I completely forgot. Yeah, you got to give Tom.
Right? I mean, come on. Even a guy like Tom is inspiring. Young kid, worked his way up, was an analyst at IDC and DataQuest, and it became, a top-notch salesperson because he worked really hard at it. He took it, really seriously, and always, going after self-improvement. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And you got to mention Billy Scannell.
And Billy, of course, to this day, just amazing, sales leader. Yeah.
Survive. I tell him he should write a book, How to Survive and Thrive. Right? Just so many different cultures, so many environments, headwinds, side winds, crazy.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, look at that company. I mean, wow, talk about a transformation. Unreal.
Yeah, amazing. So maybe, touching on that, any point of views on Dell?
Yeah, it's a new era for them. Of course, I don't blame Michael Dell. He had 40 billion reasons for selling VMware. That's in 7 years. He and Silver Lake put $4 billion of their own money into the deal to buy EMC. They did it with leverage. They paid down the debt with VMware cash flow and financial gains. But so now they're left as a hardware company with, low margins, but a leader. They do, everything, great supply chain. I was always a fan of a spin in. I mean, I think Dell could have been the Oracle of infrastructure, but again, they had so
Yeah.
many financial reasons to spin it off. And I think it's better, much better for VMware that it's, spun off as an independent. We'll see what happens with Broadcom. But so Dell now has an opportunity to continue to grow. I think they can start doing M&A. They got a much better balance sheet. I think they really have to do more in software because they just gave up their number one software asset. PCs were the gift that kept on giving during the pandemic, and that's now, reverting back to the norm. So they got to really keep crushing it in storage and do better, I think, in software areas, particularly around data management.
Yeah, totally. And so kind of reflecting back over the years, any mentors that you've had and kind of specific advice you'd gotten from them?
I would say my number one mentor, outside of my parents, was a guy named Patrick J. McGovern. He was the chairman of IDG. He's the godfather. And so he never took a dime of outside capital. And his mentorship was always stay close to the customer. Obviously, he had an unbelievable work ethic. Go and see those customers, be face to face, belly to belly, and have respect for people. He was an unbelievable gentleman. Sometimes I violate that advice, get a little heated. My Italian background, maybe, but just an unbelievable inspiration of somebody who built a multi-billion-dollar business with a blank sheet of paper.
Oh, that's great. And what about any advice that you would give your younger self?
Again, it's kind of bromide, but the whole fail faster. When I started my first company, I was so passionate about having it be a success. I didn't want to see it fail, but I knew it was going to fail, and so that was sort of one thing. The old fail faster. I also think the other big mistake I made in my career is when I left IDC, I didn't have a non-compete, and I had a massive network. That's how I knew you and a lot of other people, and I could have monetized that and built a business that would have been a precursor to what we have now. And I honestly went through some lean years and had to pick myself up and, get that positive attitude going and figure it out. And I mentioned the story of starting again, publishing, and of course it's worked out great. But in retrospect, I would have gone into what I'd known and leveraged that network better. I didn't understand the power of network.
Yeah, great, crazy. And we had, as Ken Doherty and Riley and others will say, we had Walter Brown as a early on consultant. Mike Ruckers calls him the father, the godfather of enterprise sales. But he'd say, know me, like me, trust me, right? You had to be in there proving yourself. It's not like just, hey, you're buddy. But to your point, earlier on where you're talking about, okay, you leave, you no longer have that, IDC or IBM or HP or Dell, kind of business card, why people are going to see you. They're going to see you first off based on you or what their perception was of you before. Did you come through for them? Were you helpful? That gets you in the door, and then you got the solution to kind of keep going, right?
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, you got to earn that trust, and it doesn't just happen overnight.
Awesome. Well, you've been fantastic guest. Closing question I always like to ask anybody, if it's not incriminating, if there's any PC or PG Randy story that you want to share.
I would just say this about Randy Seidel. I think in sales, first of all, in sales, you can't have enough friends. I think the first time I saw you work a room, I think you were at Permabit as a CEO. I was speaking at a storage tech conference, and I was just in awe of the way you walked around the room. You knew by the end of the night, you had talked to and pressed the flesh with every single person in that room. And I learned from watching you, and you're always there. You are a friend. And I say, you can't have enough friends in sales. I remember this past summer, my wife and I, of course, got a place down in Chatham. I know you follow both of your sons around, and I reached out to you, and sure enough, hey, I'm going to be at the game. Let's meet. You were there. We had a great chat. Took some pictures. So you're always present and always there in the moment when needed and even when not needed. So I really appreciate that friendship, Randy.
Thank you very much, and likewise for sure. And it was a great to have you show up there as well. So anyway, awesome. Really appreciate it. It's an honor. You're kind of the, I don't know what you call it, TV host, video host, broadcaster, kind of guru extraordinaire that I definitely look up to, on top of everything else, not to repeat myself, but anyway, you've been great. So next week, we're going to have David Knorr, who started out being my co-host with this, and he's got a new book out, which is Relationship Economics. It has a 3 on it, so I'm not sure if it's a part 3 or cubed or whatever, but David's always very insightful. So talking about a lot of the topics there with relationship economics, and then I'm sure we'll touch on some things relative to sales kickoffs that people are in the midst of as well. So for those that are members of Sales Community, thank you so much. If you're not, you can go to salescommunity.com/winterfree. You can get a free membership there. And for Decision Link, awesome value selling company, definitely go check them out. And Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. And this will get posted everywhere for those that want to check it out or share it. So Dave, thanks a lot. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank you, Randy. Thanks, Tucker.